Here is the lecture part 2 of chapter Thinking Like an Economist. The Production Possibilities Frontier. The Production Possibilities Frontier is a graph that shows the combinations of output that the economy can possibly produce given the available factors of production and the available production technology. For example, we have two goods and two countries so that they can produce one more of the one good and less of another and vice versa. Now this example is slightly different from what you have seen in the book. There are two goods that can be produced, computers and wheat. These are different goods and there is one resource, that is labor, which is measured in hours. How much labor does it take to produce computer and how much labor does it take to produce wheat, and what is the cost associated with that labor? Now we are going to assume here that the economy has 50,000 labor hours per month available for production. Now the production possibilities frontier example that is used here, you have producing one computer requires 100 hours of labor and producing 1 ton of wheat requires 10 hours of labor. Now here is the table for the production possibilities frontier. So you can divide up those 50,000 labor hours however you want to divide them up and produce some combination of computers and wheat listed here from point A to E. These are the points, point A, B, C, D and E. If you want all in with your labor hours for computer and none for wheat, then your production would be 500 computers and 0 tons of wheat. Conversely, if you went with all your labor hours in producing wheat, here as you can see that employment of labor hours is 0 for computers and 50,000 for producing wheat, then you would produce 0 computers and 5,000 tons of wheat. And here you see different varying combinations in between. That when you employ 40,000 hours of labor for computers and 10,000 hours for wheat, then you would produce 400 computers and 1,000 tons of wheat. Again, using 25,000 hours of labor for computer and 25,000 hours of labors for producing wheat, then you would produce 250 computers and 2,500 tons of wheat. Now, we graph this again, the different points on graph here, 500 computers and 0 tons of wheat. All the different combinations are all way down to 0 computers and 5,000 tons of wheat. And you can see here, these are the points on graph. If you plot these combinations on graph, then you will see that point A is where we are producing 500 computers. Here is the point. At point E, you are seeing that you are producing 500 of computers and 0 tons of wheat. This is done at point A. This is point A where you are producing 500 computers and 0 tons of wheat. And at point B, this one, here you are producing 400 computers and 1,000 tons of wheat. And at point C, 250 computers are produced, this much, 250, and 2,500 tons of wheat wheat are produced at point C. Similarly, at point D, producing 100 computers and 4,000 tons of wheat, and then at point E, the last point here, producing 0 computers and 5,000 tons of wheat. So this is how you can choose to allocate your labor anywhere along this line, and this line becomes what is shown as production possibilities frontier, and this line is known as production possibilities frontier. Now coming towards active learning points of the PPF. On the graph, find the point that represents 100 computers, 3,000 tons of wheat. Label it point F. Would it be possible for the economy to produce this combination of the two goods? Why or why not? Next, find the point that represents 300 computers, 3,500 tons of wheat. Label it G. Would it be possible for the economy to produce this combination of two goods? Now here is the answer. Looking at point F, you can produce 100 computers and 3,000 tons of wheat, but at point F you require 40,000 labor hours, so that this point is not efficient. You are inside your production possibilities frontier, so you are not maximizing the total number of labor hours you have available. You are using 40,000 labor hours when you have 50,000, so this is that's considered inefficient. So point F is considered as inefficient. It's uh, it's possible but inefficient. You could get more of either good without sacrificing any of the other. You are leaving some things on the table. So here is point F, that is under this line. That means this point is possible but it is inefficient. Now, answer to question 2 is, now here the answer of question number 2 is given. Look at point G, this one. Saying that let's produce 300 computers and 3,500 tons of wheat. Well, that's beyond your production possibility frontier, beyond the frontiers and beyond what you can do. Point G would require 65,000 hours of labor, and that's not possible because the economy only has 50,000 hours of labor. So if you get back to the previous graph, this one, look at point F. Point F is inside, and here point G is outside. Point F is possible but not efficient, and point G is not possible because it requires 65,000 labor hours, and that's not possible. The production possibilities frontier, what we know so far. So the production possibilities frontier, what we know so far, point on the production possibility frontier like point A to E. These points are possible and efficient. All the resources are fully utilized in between these points. Now, points under the production possibility frontiers like point F, these are possible but not efficient. Some resources are underutilized. You have workers unemployed or factories that are idle. And points above the production possibility frontier like point G are not possible. The production possibility frontier and opportunity cost. If you remember back in chapter number 1, we introduced the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of an item is what must be given up in order to obtain that item. So as you move along the production possibilities frontier, that involves shifting of resources. In that example, it's labor you are shifting. You are shifting labor from wheat production to computer production, or from computer production to wheat production. So you are moving that from one of the productions of one good to the other production. Society faces trade-off. Getting more of one good requires sacrificing some of the other good. The slope of the production possibilities frontier tells you the opportunity cost of one good in terms of the other. As you slide up and down the production possibilities frontier curves, you are trading computers for wheat and wheat for computers, depending on which direction you are going. The production possibility frontier and opportunity cost. Here the rise is a negative number. You can see here the graphical representation. Here the rise is negative number because you move to the right, and the line fall means the wheat output is reduced. The slope of the line equals the rise of the rise of the other line, the amount the line rises when you move to the right by 1 unit. Here the opportunity cost of a computer is 10 tons of wheat. Moving to the right a direction involves shifting resources from production of wheat, which causes wheat output to fall, to the production of computers, which causes computer production to rise. Producing an additional computer requires resources that would otherwise produce 10 tons of wheat. So here the opportunity cost of computer is 10 tons of wheat. Economic growth and production possibilities frontier. With additional resources or an improvement in technology, so if you get more labor hours, or you found the new technology that allows you to produce wheat and or computers to have a higher level of production due to the technologies, that you have got a new fertilizer that increases wheat yield, or you found a new microchip processor that allows you to build computers faster. Whatever it was, the economy can produce more computers and or more wheat, or any combination in between. Here we see an equal shift of production possibility uh, curves outward. Here is the shift. Uh, the previous curve is this black line, and the new one is red. So these two are showing the parallel shift. You are seeing here the production possibility curve shifting outward. It's quite possible that only one could shift and the other stays the same, but we are seeing what looks to be a proportional shift. The production possibilities frontier shows the trade-off between outputs of good at given time, but the trade-off again can change over time. So for example, over time the economy might get more workers or more factories, or you can say more land or more efficient technology might be invented. In both events there is an increase in the economy's resources or an improvement in technology. So this causes an expansion and excessive opportunities, that is both the economies to produce more of one goods. Here the economic growth causes a parallel shift of the production possibility frontier, and since the new production possibility frontier is parallel to the old one, the trade-off between the two goods is the same. However, this is not always the case. For example, a new technology had more impact on the computer industry that it did on the wheat industry. Then the horizontal line of the computer intercept, this one, this is the horizontal line showing computers, and here the vertical line showing wheat. So the vertical intercept, the horizontal line of the computer intercept would increases more than the vertical intercept, and that production possibility frontier would be a little bit flatter. The opportunity cost of computers would fall because technology has made them relatively cheaper. The shape of the production possibility frontier. The production possibility frontiers could be a straight line or a bow shaped. It depends on what happens to the opportunity costs as economy shifts resources from one industry to another. If opportunity cost remains constant, the production possibility frontier is a straight line. In the previous example, we looked opportunity cost of a computer was always 10 tons of wheat in the last example. So every time you produced another unit of computer, you lost 10 tons of wheat every time. If opportunity cost of a good rises, as more of the good is produced, the production possibility frontier will be bow shaped. Why the production possibilities frontier might be bow shaped? As the economy shifts resources, for example from beer to mountain bikes, the production possibility curves become steeper. The opportunity cost of the mountain bikes increases so as you move away from producing or as you produce more beer, the opportunity cost lost to producing bikes is actually more steep. At point A, here this point, most workers are producing beer, so we have more workers producing beer than those who do mountain bikes. You just draw an imaginary line down this point. That how many mountain bikes are producing, and this is how much you are producing beer. So most of the workers are producing beer, even those that are better uh, suited to be building mountain bikes. So you do not have to give up much beer to get up more bikes here. At point A, opportunity cost of a mountain bike is low. There is not a real big rise or run. Now at point B, the opportunity cost of the mountain bikes is higher. So you see this big drop off here. That's a considerable change from this minimum mountain bike to producing that minimum mountain bikes. At point B, most workers are producing more mountain bikes as they produce beer. Producing more bikes would require the shifting of some of the best brewers away from beer production, which causes a big drop in beer output. So this is how you represent that in a production possibility frontier curves. So, production possibilities frontier is bow-shaped when different workers have different skills, different opportunity costs of producing one good in terms of the other. The production possibility frontier would also be a bow-shaped when there is some other resource or mix of resources with varying opportunity cost. For example, different types of land suited for different uses, and a bow-shaped production possibility frontier illustrates the concept of increasing opportunity cost. And this is what we have done in our previous slides. Now, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of how households and firms make decisions and how they interact in markets. And macroeconomics is the study of economy-wide phenomena, including inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. These two branches of economics are closely intertwined yet distinct. They address different questions, and I have explained these two types of economics to you in detail. So that's why I'm not again going to the detail of these two types of economics. Now, the economist as policy advisor. As scientists, economists make positive statements which attempt to describe the world as it is. They give factual statements like today the temperature is 35 degrees Celsius. As policy advisors, economists make normative statements which attempt to prescribe how the world should be. Positive statements can be confirmed or refuted. Normative statements cannot, because they are essentially opinions. The normative statements are the opinions, and positive statements are based on facts. Government employs many economists for policy advice. For example, the US President has a Council of Economic Advisors, which the author of this textbook chaired from 2003 to 2005, and that is Gregory Mankiw. Why economists disagree? Economists often give conflicting policy advice. They sometimes disagree about the validity of alternative positive theories about the world. They may have different values and therefore different normative views about what policy should try to accomplish, and yet there are many uh, propositions about which most economists agree. So that's all from chapter number 2, that is thinking like an economist.